maybe it's time to just launch into Mortal Kombat.
Yes, the new movie that came out.
Yeah. Well, so Zach, you
not
were
the 1995 movie.
You were pretty excited about this. I remember going into it, Zach. You were like, like for some reason, I'm really pumped for this movie. And isn't it true that none of us knew that there was going to be a Mortal Kombat movie this year until HBO Max did their or Warner, whatever that giant company is. Is it AOL Time Warner? It can't be AOL.
Warner Max is the name of the parent conglomerate thing.
Got it. Yeah, didn't they? Or Warner Media, isn't it? Isn't that what it is?
I don't know. They have so many. There's
there's a lot of names. But HBO Max is the service.
Right.
Warner Media is like the conglomerate, and there is a Warner Max which produces a lot of these things. So it is very confusing.
I didn't want to say just HBO Max because the whole point of the statement was that they had that lineup a few months ago where they were like, here's all the stuff that's going to come to HBO Max as well as to theater. And which I thought was cool because it seems like Disney's still doing this premiere access $30 thing that's going to go out of style pretty quick if everybody else does this other thing.
Yeah, because you can watch Godzilla versus Kong when it comes out.
Yeah,
and other things. So,
between the Snyder Cut, Godzilla, Kong, and now this, they've had a pretty good run recently of like must watch, cultural. It's just funny because they always coincide with some new episode of some Marvel show.
Yeah.
So that week you're like all the podcasts and YouTubers are talking about like some episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier and like Godzilla. Certainly we feel the pressure around here. We're like, shit, Fridays when we record and go watch this thing at 2x and give my take on it and go to bed.
It's better than watching all the Oscar movies. I can say that.
Oh my God. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of the original. I'm a huge fan of the game. When I heard that they were going to make an R-rated decently, but I guess I assumed it would be decently budgeted. Now that I've seen the movie, I'm like, I'm not so sure about the budget on this thing.
No, it looks cheap.
Yeah.
Not even looking cheap. You can see just with the editing and stuff, you can see how chopped up it is.
Yeah.
And like they were definitely running up against budgetary limits.
Let's provide an example. Goro has like a fight in a backyard.
It was almost unceremonious. He was just like, I'm coming out of your shed and I'm gonna fight you in your backyard.
It felt like they could have maybe
I'm gonna fight a made up like no name character in the backyard.
I heard somebody compare that character to remember that like fake Muppet in the new Muppets movie, the Jason Segel Muppet?
Yeah,
like, it's sort of that. It's like it's not like we don't have characters. You don't need this. And you can take, your fish out of water could have been Sonya.
Yeah.
If you wanted it to be. Or
it actually probably would have been better to be Sonya or Jax. Like you follow them falling down the investigative rabbit hole or something.
Right.
All the stuff that she talks to him about for 10 minutes.
It always had been Johnny Cage. He was always the doofus that thought he was going on set and he was actually going to be fighting to his death, which I think always works. It worked in the 95 movie. It worked in the MK9 video game storyline. It worked in that new animated one, that Warner Brothers animated one. It's always funny. It's always like he's a failing actor and some agent is like, you should do this like Chinese thing. And I don't know. To be like, let's spare him for the sequel. If this movie felt to me, so I did not like this movie. I will not rewatch it. I think it had a few good ideas, but ultimately it feels to me very much like the Power Rangers 2017 remake and the Michael Bay TMNT remakes, which is to say that like it took superficially what they thought everybody liked about these things and tried to give you your wildest dreams about that franchise. And then it added up to nothing somehow. And certainly the screenplays are worse than I think like the legacy movies are. Like I think the 95 movie screenplay is a much better screenplay than this one.
Yeah, it's just like it's like the problem with Phantom Menace where you can't really describe any of the characters. The only one I could really describe is actually Kung Lao. It's like he's like arrogant and like privileged and things like that. But other than that, they're just all blank slate like characters that go with the plot. It's just nothing's memorable.
Yeah, if you didn't know anything about Mortal Kombat, would you like you wouldn't probably even understand exactly what's going on and who all these people are, even as like rough, like, character sketches. Like you wouldn't know the significance of Liu Kang or
Right.
like it's just everybody shows up on screen and you're sort of expected to be like, oh, it's like from the video game. And
Right.
it's not telling like a story that's independent of,
And if there was a central reason for that, I would say that it's because there's a lack of a tournament in this thing. Like there's no narrative structure to it. They decided
it definitely felt like the Poochie firework factory thing where you're just like, when are they going to get to the fireworks factory?
Well, they clearly want to
get to the tournament.
They want to do a Batman Begins thing, which is like, let's set the table and then let's actually have the second movie be what would normally have been the first movie. But I think the video games already follow a pretty decent structure, which is movie 1 is the most normal and there's stakes. It's the 10th of the 10 tournaments. And if we lose this one, it's real bad. But that's like the most normal. And then like Shao Kahn comes into it and is like, I want a rematch. And then finally of course, narratively, you would just combine Mortal Kombat 2 and 3, which is what Mortal Kombat Annihilation does.
Yeah.
Just not well. But yeah, you make it so he takes the war to Earth and it, that works. But I kind of get why they did what they did. And I want to talk through it a little bit. But one reason is, you can tell that like, okay, where do the side stories for these characters fit into the overall picture if you were to do a 3-act structure about a tournament? How do you tell a story about Sub-Zero and Scorpion specifically, fan favorites that everybody is disappointed was left out of the 95 movie? And that I don't know if you remember, but they crammed them back into Mortal Kombat Annihilation. And it's just I don't know the last time you've seen Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
I saw it on TV actually, because I didn't bother seeing it.
They're in it. They both died.
I don't even remember. I remember Raiden being a different person, and that's about it.
Yeah. Right. Which is a real shame because that's why you left the temple, isn't it? Is a classic shit.
Sorry.
Sorry. That shit's great. So I think being like, oh, how do we frame it so that Hanzo is really important to what's going on is a little bit tricky. I think the animated movie does it super well, which is he's the sort of background character that frames the entire 3 acts, and then still Liu Kang. Like you do need Liu Kang to be the main character. Or some it could be Sonya. Sonya could just be the main character. That would actually be totally acceptable. Yeah. But you have to have, Cole just, I think, crowds the place up a bit.
Yeah, and he's not interesting very much besides being like, I have a family that I like. What do you do? He fights and he loses. He used to be good, maybe. I don't know.
I thought he was going to be a Scorpion. I thought that was going to be their way into it.
Yeah.
He'll like Hanzo will, his Kana or whatever is going to be that he's Scorpion. I thought, and instead it's like, no, he just got Aquaman armor.
Yeah, that was really strange.
Very peculiar.
The whole Arcana thing was really, really strange. Like trying to explain like Mortal Kombat powers, I just don't think works.
Yeah, it did not work in the movie. I think there's some treatment of the screenplay where that could work. Where like, they were trying to bring something new to it, and it's like, well, yeah, we never explained, how in the video game they have superpowers. Maybe they should have superpowers here. I think it's not a terrible idea. Like, yeah, like if you're chosen for the tournament, you're endowed with some supernatural powers. It could be something. Actually, it reminds me yet again of the 2017 Power Rangers movie, because I don't know if you guys saw that, but that they take the entire movie. They like can't morph. They like can't get an erection. Yeah. That's like a lot of the movie is like, you have to like be able to morph. And I'm like, as a result, most of the 90 minutes has no Power Rangers in it.
Yeah.
Because you have to lead into it. It's like, for fuck's sake. The end of first act, they morph. That's what you must do.
Yeah.
If so I think there was a similar issue here for sure.
Too
But
much,
yeah, I
too
think-
much Kano too.
Ah, fuck, man. I hated Kano in this. I hear that like some people think he's the only thing good about it, maybe because it's the closest thing to personality that the movie has.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just, it feels so sophomoric. Like he's just saying like the F word and, like he's just, it's and the dialogue's like way too cute, like way too, I don't know, like a Reddit thread made it or something.
I would really like it if, the sorts of things I was looking for was like, okay, Shang Tsung should be ancient. That would have been a nice touch.
Well, like who even is Shang Tsung in this movie?
Right.
If you didn't know anything about Mortal Kombat, you'd be like, okay, what's this? This guy lives on a desert planet or something, and he wants to cheat. Okay, what about him is interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah, the outworld was nothing. Yeah, it was just like a desert green screen set.
Yeah, exactly.
You know who was great though is I don't know. I tried to look into it and I couldn't. It was nothing I recognized. But whoever is Cabal's voice.
Oh yeah, he's got some flair.
Did they get like Bill Burr to do it? It's like, oh, dude, I know this guy named Kano. I'm trying to think of like even one line that he had, but he sounded pretty funny to me. Like I liked whatever they were after with Cabal, even though I don't think it was realized.
Yeah, and I wasn't too sure what was going on.
Oh no, he sounded like Fat Tony from The Simpsons.
Where is the pretzel monies?
Where is the Mortal Kombat pretzel money? Yeah, it totally. I do kind of like that. That Kung Lao and Liu Kang were really small, like in stature. I thought that was kind of a neat touch. Like these, like these Shaolin monks that are very powerful, but really teeny. I thought that was like
I liked, I mean, not that there's like great acting in this movie, but I thought the casting was pretty much fine. Like I actually liked everybody, Liu Kang and Kung Lao. I just wanted to actually see them, fight and have that be interesting. And the movie wasn't going to do that.
Like, I don't think it's the worst idea in the world to be like, oh, let's make a Mortal Kombat movie that bookends with like prequel Scorpion and Sub-Zero and like current day Scorpion and Sub-Zero. Like to have that be the third act feels right, feels okay. If you want to do something different than like Liu Kang versus Shang Tsung or something, feels kind of cool. And actually, I think that if there was one thing that the movie did really well that like I can't take any points off for, I thought Sub-Zero as a character was like, yeah, EJ said he was like a slasher villain. It was totally true. It was well realized. And they built him up as a good third act baddie. And that all worked well.
Yeah. And I thought the whole opening scene was great. And I thought the fight between Scorpion and Sub-Zero at the end was great.
You know, the Cole was like swimming around in it. Like, I'm
He every time they cut to Cole like punching his wife and children's ice, I was like, I don't care.
was she Kaylee from Firefly?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't think she's anybody.
I don't think they're anybody.
I don't think she's anybody. I don't think Cole is anybody.
I don't think this movie's gonna make her anybody either.
I don't think the movie was anything. It is funny how it's a terrible idea to, like, for instance, dispatch Goro before the tournament.
Yeah,
isn't he meant to be prominently featured in the tournament?
Like every time, I will say about the Goro fight and like some of the fights is that once they got to like the glory kill violence, it was fun. Like when the bird lady was chopped in half or whatever and stuff like that.
Yeah, all the fatalities are like straight out of the game, and those were fun and well done, but they just kind of happen. Like you want the fights to have their own sort of mini story, and the fatality should be the climax to that. Like so it should build up. But the fighting is like the editing is awful. Like it's almost but it's only on the fights. Like the fight scene in the beginning with Scorpion and Sub-Zero, and at the end those are pretty well done and well choreographed, and there's obviously a lot of attention and detail put into like how they're filmed and the pacing of them. but like the montage of fights that happens like right at the beginning of the third act, like as if like, oh right, we should have some fighting in our Mortal Kombat movie.
So much so that you got to wonder if definitely the first, but maybe both the first and finale fights were a different director. Like they feel differently handled altogether.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the movie feels like first unit director type shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely, just thought it all feels, like rushed but I don't know, but boring.
Isn't it clear that they want to do more with this? That this whole movie was about setting up a sequel and making more movies. And maybe, I mean, I hear that it did really well on HBO Max, and so probably they will follow it up, and hopefully they'll listen to the criticism and make better movies. But I worry that it pretty much everybody agrees it was a dud, and yet, like, I feel like a lot of people.
I've seen a lot of people defend it, and
really?
in like the worst way like possible, because if you mention like, well, I just didn't think it was very good. They're like, oh, well, what are you expecting? Oscar level acting. It's like, no, nobody's watching this movie expecting that. They want to see fight scenes, well done fight scenes. Like even the '90s one had the fight scenes were great. They just weren't. They were the Super Nintendo Mortal Kombat. They weren't the Mortal Kombat. So like, I think people are fooled by the fatalities and stuff, but like the fighting should be the highlights. So like, that's why I was saying, like when we were chatting earlier, like why didn't they were clearly, up against the budget. Go grab some awesome filmmaker from Indonesia or like Hong Kong and give them $100 million. They'll make an awesome fucking movie for you, and you won't have all this dumb.
I think they had an opportunity to do that with this movie. It felt like they could have, and yet again, you fucked up Mortal Kombat. And I remember when the trailer came out for this one, the commentary was that I heard from a lot of people was like, "Oh, I'm excited about it. I'm not expecting much, but I'm excited about it." I'm like, I would like to expect a little something. This is a pretty old franchise at this point. It doesn't seem to be going away. They've got 11, mainline video games. Like, maybe I'll sound stupid saying this, but I actually think that as far as fighting game storylines go, Mortal Kombat's kind of, it's got like 30 years of like storytelling. Like, I remember reading like these novels about it when I was a kid, and they weren't half bad, like about Hanzo and shit. Maybe they were terrible, but I remember them being decent.
They have definitely a great backstory. And of course, the Sub-Zero and Scorpion rivalry is that's easy. It's easy movie fodder.
Well, yeah. That was another thing that didn't work. I mean, like that's probably the best part about this recent movie, but like they don't really go into it at all. Like finish the movie and you have no idea why they're feuding, or
you don't know who those clans are that they reference a couple of times.
Right.
They should, if they wanted to make a Mortal Kombat pre-movie, you know where I'm going with this. Totally just make Scorpion versus Sub-Zero the movie. Live action for HBO Max. People would love it. They'll know what it is. You don't have to name it Mortal Kombat or Origins or whatever. Scorpion versus Sub-Zero, and do it hard. Do 2 hours of that shit and do it well. That'd be great. And then, and then you don't have to really spend a lot of time on them in the main movie.
Or, what would be cool is you still do that, but have a Mortal Kombat tournament set during that time frame, setting up. Like if you want to build to the tournament for the second movie with the stakes of like, if they lose one more, the world gets invaded or whatever, you could set you still have the tournament structure, but you establish the stakes, and then you can have your, contemporary tournament or whatever for the
Holy
sequel.
fuck. That would be, that is a genius idea, where what you would do is, and it's even similar to the structure of the video games, which is if whoever you win as in the video game, you get their story, how like that always worked.
Yeah.
Do an anthology series for HBO Max. Maybe just make them an hour each or something. Or make them feature films. Who cares? But Mortal Kombat, Scorpion versus Sub-Zero, or Battle of the Clans or whatever. Mortal Kombat, Special Ops. Mortal Kombat, Shaolin Monks.
Oh yeah.
And it all takes place during the same period of time. It's just that you get to go deep on each one of them. And yeah, isn't that a genius? That's like $1 billion.
That's a $1 billion. I think as a prestige, you could make it like a really high budget HBO Max series, and I would be totally down with that.
I would watch every one of those.
My guess is the reason why they went with doing this movie the way they did and with the budget that they did is that they weren't sure that it was going to be worth, financially viable. Because that's why, you probably remember like a few years ago, they had the internet shorts that were like the gritty, origin stories of all the hero. And that was those were web shorts. Like they clearly did not want to invest a ton of money in the property. So I think they were probably reluctant to do so, for this movie, and wanted to see what the response was. So maybe the second one will be better. But
why not make more? Scorpion versus Sub-Zero, the movie, $50 million. You don't have to go crazy. It does, because we're not expecting like the battle for Earth itself or something.
Right.
It's not a mainline movie, but it's got all the name recognition, all the franchise recognition that you need to be successful. So if you're not successful, it will tell you that you really shouldn't go ahead and make any of those other movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think the audience would be like, the Scorpion versus Sub-Zero movie should be much higher budget or something. You could make it a little bit more intimate. You could make it all, because you don't have to have 50 matchups. It's really just about these two guys, and they probably face each other 3 times in the movie, right? And so maybe there's like 4 action scenes in the whole thing.
Yeah,
and could have been good.
It's the Scorpion actor is probably one of the better actors in that movie. He's definitely great.
Isn't he well known for something or other?
He was in like Westworld and
Lost,
other movies,
and Last Samurai.
Yeah, so he's pretty well known. So he's
like the only person who's actually like been in stuff.
And now they the internet wants Ryan Reynolds to be Johnny Cage or whatever.
That's
which I think is actually not probably what I would want from Johnny Cage.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who I would have to think about that. But there's probably some. Well, fuck, I know who. The Miz from wrestling.
Yeah. That's I think
that's what it should be.
Yeah,
because he's got the pompousness, he's got the athleticism, but he's also not some A-lister, that you have to like pull in. Like he's perfect. Get the Miz.
Yeah,
he'll class the joint up.
I think that would be a better than Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds is too much. Reynolds.
He's clearly Pikachu.
He's clearly Pikachu. Always will be.
He can't get away from Pikachu.
That movie's like weirdly good though.
Yeah, I still actually haven't seen it. It came out like before Sonic, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it was,
Sonic
it was a good.
Better, but
it seemed like it was a good. Instead of making Pokemon the movie or something, it was like, well, how can we play again? It's actually a pretty similar to the pitch I'm giving for Scorpion versus Sub-Zero, which is like take all the name recognition and just make something a little bit more fresh that maybe doesn't have quite the same stakes.
Yeah, it's a not lower stakes, but like smaller story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then this story felt thin. Yeah, there was definitely not.
Yeah, because like they have the high stakes, but you don't feel that at all. I mean, like.
Yeah, they're there. They're there, but ultimately they're there for the second movie.
Right. And so, it's kind of funny when you're talking about like the first Mortal Kombat, like they didn't get everybody signed because they didn't know how to Hollywood hadn't really learned how to do the franchise like pre-planning yet. And this one almost feels like they've gotten too good at it, and it's actually hurt the movies because now they're expecting the sequels to build up on stuff.
Yeah, they didn't deliver nearly enough in this movie. I showed up for dinner and I got like not even quite a steak salad. They're like, no, there will be food eventually. Come back later.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I got to say about that.